All right, everybody, here we are for episode 52 of Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. This has been 52 fantastic episodes. Happy Father's Day, Wayne.
Happy Father's Day, Michael.
It's wonderful to be recording on this Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everybody out there that's listening that is a dad.
Yeah.
We appreciate you, and we hope you had a good Father's Day because this will come out obviously the week after. But
right.
Yeah, it's been a good week. Wayne, you got anything you want to talk about?
As we get older, we're both nearing that big 4-0. I wanted to, bring it in, rub it in, right? That's what I do.
You'll get there first.
Yes, I will. Oh, but maybe. I don't know.
Hopefully.
I'm a couple double cheeseburgers away from a coronary. Always bright and positive on Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. I tumbled down the rabbit hole, if you will, and got into just music, best of from this year, best of that year.
Yeah, for sure.
I am a big fan of, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and even the early 2000s. But I'm struggling to get into music nowadays. Like, just discovering good stuff and just really, I don't know if it's because, I'm old and I can't relate to it, but, like, I was listening to the greatest songs from 1999, and I'm like, oh my gosh, every one of these is fantastic. And I couldn't name 10 songs from the last 5 years that...
Yeah, it's definitely different. I think it's a nostalgia thing for one.
Yeah.
Two, it reminds you of when you were younger. So, I mean, that's why again, you just said it, we're reaching 40 soon. It reminds you of a time when you were younger, there were less worries, and the music was, I think, felt better because, like, I listened to a lot more music back then. I don't think I listened to as much music. I'm more listening to podcasts, or if it's music, it's a curated list of stuff that I personally like, which is a lot of stuff from now. I have a very wide taste in films. I have a very wide taste in music.
Right.
So I like a lot of things. But I do agree with you. The 90s will always, just like the Bulls will always be the best championship team, Jordan will always be the best basketball player of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The 90s will always be the best musical time for me because that's when I grew up. It's the music that kind of shaped me, I think. And I think we always have a fond memory of that. That's why 80s kids always have a fond memory of the 80s because of all the concerts and stuff back then with the hair metal bands and all that stuff, and the Metallica on the rise. And
you make a very valid point about that because, like I said, I am a fan of the 50s, 60s, all that. But again, that's what I grew up with, and it's kind of just the nature versus nurture type. Well, not really, but like the nature of what you grew up with and what your parents listened to really affected you. And I'm with you. Like I like the wide spectrum of music, and it's just I don't know. I just thought it was odd. That I was struggling.
I will say this, and I'm sure our friend Doug Cabrera, the music expert, would agree with us. It's hard. You'd be hard set to find a band right now that's going to have a history like the bands that we grew up with in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, because it just doesn't seem like it because it's too new. You know what I mean? Like there will be people that live long beyond the time they've gone from now, but it's hard to tell who they're going to be yet. Mm-hmm. And I think in the 90s, people had a hard time with that, too. Like, it wasn't, just when Nirvana came out, there wasn't like, oh, well, they're going to be living out long after Kurt has killed himself. And they have. And they still, people still talk about Nirvana.
He was murdered, sir.
Yes.
I've seen the documentary. Well, you know what is interesting? When we look back at the 90s, there are very few legacy songs. Like, I remember, like, a lot of the one-hit wonders. Or, few hit wonders.
Yes.
And, without turning this into a music podcast, I wanted to touch on that really quick.
Well, and I think what you're getting on there too is like you're right, but it wasn't about the one hit wonders though back then. It was more about the bands. Like I love Smashing Pumpkins. I love Red Hot Chili Peppers. Like those are two of my favorites from the 90s. I'm different with the Chili Peppers where I like a lot more of their after Under the Bridge. Like I love Under the Bridge is probably my favorite song of all time, but that whole album is really good. But I like more Californication and By the Way and that's more
Scar Tissue.
Yes, great song. Like that's the album that really got to me, and like with Green Day too. Like it was American Idiot that was the first album that I really like dove into. Where I like their other stuff, I like Dookie, but like so some of their I'm not as like everybody else said on the time period, I guess. But music is an interesting thing because it again it's like movies. You always have people movies. horror movies were the best in the 80s. Comedies were the best in the 80s. You know, there's always a decade that people like to attach to them. Usually it's the 80s because people can't get out of the 80s.
That's because when they peaked.
Manhunt. All right. If you're actually listening now, I apologize.
Next on Now Listening with Mike and Wayne, we insult our next friend.
But, so I mean, it's always an interesting conversation to have because with movies and music, you know, things change. 20 years from now, people are going to be talking about how Taylor Swift changed the music industry, which is something I'm sure is going to happen or is in the process of happening right now.
Well, her jump from country music into
mega superstar. Yeah. I mean, like it's ridiculous. And Beyonce too. She's another one. She's going to live on for a long time. Long after she's gone too. So I mean, we do have them there. It's just I don't think we've gotten there yet because they're still. I mean, they're like our age or younger. So it's hard for us to look at someone who's 39 and be like, oh, they're a legend already. We'll be a little older, like, okay, this is who we had, and this is who they have. This is their generation's legendary star. Because a lot of them are still very young, too. I mean, that's the other thing. They're all in there. They all started younger, it seemed, too, as opposed to where it was harder to get into business back in the 80s and 90s. Now it's like, if you're on YouTube and you're 18 and you get a hit song, someone's going to sign you right. And not that that's a bad thing. That's the way the industry has changed, the way the world has changed, comedy's changed that way, movie making has changed that way.
And thank God for it, because you don't have to work your way through the sliminess of the industry.
Right, exactly. It's kind of not as gross as it used to be, I hope. We hope it's getting better after all the Weinstein stuff that, get that out of there and get this other stuff in there.
But just to, close, like I said, my father affected my musical taste and my movie tastes. And, as we get into these movies starring our father, not our fathers, but fathers in general.
Fathers, yes.
It's very interesting. I found there was a lot more movies about dads.
Yeah.
A lot of them being put on a pedestal.
There are.
It's interesting. As compared to movies about mothers.
There is. And it is something that I think Hollywood is, again, behind on, and maybe they're going to rectify that in the future. Not that there's anything wrong with dads. We love dads, obviously. We love our dads. We think we're great dads, even if we're not. But Hollywood run by men and movies made by men. You're going to have a lot of movies about fathers, fatherhood, that kind of stuff. Where like Mrs. Doubtfire, stuff like that. So let's get into it. We're going to talk fathers today in honor of Father's Day. We're going to blah blah blah. We're going to review a movie about a father. So let's get into it. I'm going to start first, Wayne. One of the movies I always think of, and my wife brought up to my attention as I watched it, tried to finish it 3 times this week. Father of the Bride. She hates it.
Really?
Yeah, she's not a fan.
The Father of the Bride. Go
town. This is a movie I grew up on, and it's always been one of my kind of favorite, like, go-to father comedies, if you will. If that's its own genre in itself. I've never seen the original, but I'm obviously talking about the 1991 Steve Martin version with Martin Short and Diane Keaton, Kimberly she's Paisley, Kimberly Williams Paisley.
I've got a great story about this one. We saw this in the theater with my parents.
Yeah.
And don't forget to buckle your condom. I yell out in the theater, Dad, what's a condom?
It's a great line, man. It was nice to revisit it this week. Steve Martin is hilarious in this movie. And it's kind of like he's the overbearing dad. So he's not necessarily the likable dad all the way through, but at the end of the movie, you kind of get to see him kind of do a 180 and become that guy that, he is the loving father, but he's to a point where it's very annoying early on in the movie. He can't let go of his little girl and stuff like that.
The driveway basketball scenes for me.
Those were really good. And they kind of resonate different now, obviously being a parent. So it's a little... Watching this movie as an adult is a little different than watching it when I was a kid. But I always enjoyed it. I enjoyed the second one, too. A lot of people didn't like that one. I enjoyed both of them. Steve Martin, I've always been a fan of his. So Father of the Bride, if you haven't seen either of them, check them out. I wanted to slash in another one with it because it's a Steve Martin movie, Parenthood. Love Parenthood.
Yes.
If you haven't seen Parenthood, really, you need to watch that one. It's got a great cast, led by Steve Martin, but Rick Moranis is in it as well. A bunch of other people I didn't bring up. The Keanu Reeves, obviously.
Early Keanu Reeves.
Early Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah. You mean Leaf?
Yes.
As he is credited in the movie?
Yes, and then what's the other one? Martha Plimpton, right?
Yeah.
Plays the daughter, right?
Diane Wiest.
Diane Wiest's daughter, yeah. So there's a lot. That one's about a big family, and Steve Martin is kind of like the head of that big family, and it's a really fun movie. It's more of a dramedy than a straight-up comedy. Made into a pretty excellent TV series, too, which I never finished, but when I did watch it, I really liked it. But yes, if you haven't seen either of those, any of those three movies, check them out. Wayne, what's your first one you want to talk about?
All right, I'm going to go in chronological order here as to when they came out because I can't choose which one I like the best. But I'm going to go. I want to start with 1989's Field of Dreams. For those of you that don't know, this is a baseball movie starring Kevin Costner. Let me give you the rest of the cast here. Obviously, the great James Earl Jones, Ray Liotta, Amy Madigan, Gabby Hoffman, and that's most of the notable names that I could see. All right, so here's the quick little rundown. Iowa farmer Ray Kinsella is inspired by a voice he can't ignore to pursue a dream he can hardly believe. Supported by his wife, Ray begins the quest by turning his ordinary cornfield into a place where dreams come true. Now, this is a bit of a supernatural. I won't go so far as to say sci-fi, but it's got some supernatural sci-fi qualities to it. Ray Kinsella is a farmer, and he starts hearing a voice that says, "If you build it, he will come." And everybody thinks he's just going crazy. And it gets amplified when he decides to plow through a quarter of his cornfield and build a baseball diamond. Once he builds the baseball diamond, he gets a visit from beyond. Shoeless Joe Jackson of the 1919 Chicago Black Sox, through the World Series cheating scandal, which is a whole other story, and also a great movie called 8 Men Out, which highly recommend you should watch if you're a baseball and a crime fan, because that's a great movie. But Ray Liotta plays Shoeless Joe, and he shows up in the cornfield one night. And he goes. They go out there. Ray goes out there to have a talk with him, and just, ask, "Is this heaven? No, this is Iowa." It's very interesting. Like the voice comes back. It starts telling him to do other things. Go the distance, ease his pain, and it's a very interesting tale. Basically, it all culminates with Ray's unfinished business. I forget the big scientific word for it. With dealing with his father and never having the relationship he wanted with him, and never having that game of catch. And it's a very touching, very heartwarming film. Obviously, Ray is a father to a little girl, and he leaves his wife, his child, and his farm to pursue what the voice is telling him to do. And along the way, he ends up setting a lot of things right for a bunch of other people that have unfinished business or unjustified hurt. I know I'm being very vague and kind of windy with this because it's a very intricate story to explain, but it is a classic in my opinion.
It's a classic. It's essentially the perfect dad movie because it's about a man trying to understand his father that he really didn't know, and having that one moment with him. And I mean, everybody I think can relate to that, regardless of wherever you are in your life. And it's always was a popular movie to watch growing up. In the 90s, it was just always on. So I caught it plenty of times. It was a great movie, and probably one of Costner's best, I would say. And really just a touching film, I would say. Yeah,
I mean, because it had the sports for me, which kept me occupied as a child. It had all the other stuff that my parents enjoyed.
And as a child, too, for me, especially someone into horror films and kind of weird stuff, like just having that little voice speak, like, that was always like, it's kind of creepy.
It had a little creep factor to it. It did.
And it was a whisper. Anytime there's a whisper in a movie and you don't know where it's coming from, it's usually pretty creepy.
Especially if it's a careless whisper.
Yes.
Cue the saxophone solo.
Oh my god.
But yeah, that is going to be that 1989 Field of Dreams. If you have not seen it, please do yourself a favor and check out this film.
All right, so my next one I want to talk about is a newer one from 2018. I got a big list here, but I narrowed it down to the three I really want to pick on. 8th Grade came out in 2018. It's the coming-of-age story of a young girl who's like going into middle school, and she's trying to, or it's her final week at middle school. Sorry, so she's going into high school, and she's still trying to find her way, and she doesn't have a mother. The mother either left or passed away. I can't remember. But the father is the one that's raising her, and that's played by Josh Hamilton. He's a character actor. I think a lot of people will recognize him if they looked him up. There's a scene in this movie, Wayne, at the end of the movie. This is why I want to talk about this movie. Like throughout the movie, he's a good dad and stuff. It's not necessarily about him; it's more about her. Mm. But at the end of the movie, there's this scene. She asks basically asks the dad why he cares about her, and like it's such an emotional, gut-wrenching scene that I really want people to see this movie anyway. Like, you should see it because you have a child who will be going into middle school next year. I have one going in later this year. I actually want Donovan to watch it. But it's such an emotional scene from a father in this movie that it's always sat with me, even though I've only seen it. I think the one time I actually went to the theaters to check it out. And it really just has always sat with me ever since I saw it. And it's such a great scene to show how much, as a parent, we care for our children, and the fact that no matter what they do, we will always be there, no matter what happens, and it really sets that tone, and it really is something I want people to watch. I believe it's on Amazon or Hulu, or it was at some point. It's written and directed by Bo Burnham, who's hot right now because he's got the comedy special on Netflix. People may not know about this movie. It's a drama, for the most part. It was rated R for weird reasons too, because there's not really a lot of bad language in it. There's really no sex in it or anything. It's about an 8th grader, but I think they say like the F word or something. Yeah. So it was kind of stupid that it was rated R. Should have been PG-13. But definitely recommend checking that one out. I really like that movie a lot, and it's a great performance by Josh Hamilton, someone who I honestly should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor for playing the father in that movie. So Wayne, what's your next one?
All right. My next one is the 1993 film Sleepless in Seattle. You've got Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Ross Malinger, Rita Wilson, Mrs. Tom Hanks, for those of you that don't know, Victor Garber, Rosie O'Donnell has a small role, David Harry Pierce has a small role. All right. So, a recently widowed man's son calls a radio talk show in an attempt to find his father a partner. Gosh, I was way too young to watch this movie and to get the depths of this. The movie starts at the funeral of the wife and mother. And the father's talking to his son about why they're leaving Chicago and going to Seattle. And, the friends are talking about Seattle. It rains 9 months out of the year. It's like the depression capital of the world. Why would you want to go there? And Tom Hanks delivers a line, and I can't quote it perfectly, but it's like, I need to be somewhere where everywhere I walk down the street, I don't think of her. Yeah. Because their surroundings, their home, everything reminds Tom Hanks of his dead wife. And Jonah, the son, Sam Baldwin is Tom Hanks' character. I should use character names, not the actor's name.
It's Tom Hanks' life story,
yes. Everybody. Jonah, sees that his dad is suffering. He knows something is wrong. So he decides to call Dr. Laura. Dr. Laura, Dr. Linda. I don't remember. I wish I had a chance to review this movie and to give you all the details in full. But yeah, so the kid's like, yeah, my dad needs a new wife. You don't like the one he's got? Yeah, he doesn't have one. Where's your mom? She died. And it seems like the radio host kind of manipulates the kid to get the father on the air to kind of talk and express it. And that's what Tom Hanks thinks. It's like, I don't know why my son did this, but let me assure you that we are fine. Everything is good.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, he just starts talking and sharing. And this is right around Christmas time, I believe. But yeah, it is. Because Meg Ryan's character is going with her love interest, her fiance at the time.
Bill Pullman.
Yes, Bill Pullman. Who's allergic to bees.
Yes.
It's just it's an interesting love story because, Meg Ryan, like many other women apparently, fall in love with Sam on the phone, listening to this radio talk show. And, they make light of it. It's like, how ridiculous this is? What? I bet he's got people chopped up and hiding in his fridge. Making a reference to the Wisconsin serial killer, Mark Dahmer, or not Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Jeffrey Dahmer. Mark Dahmer, the lesser-known serial killer.
His brother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Distant cousin. Well, distant over here, pieces over here. The joke didn't pan out, guys. I'm sorry. Anyway, it goes back and forth. Annie flies to Seattle to go and meet him. Something happens where she doesn't go and introduce herself. I believe he's with another woman that appears to be a lover, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
For somehow they end up saying they're going to meet on top of the Empire State Building on Valentine's Day. Jonah sneaks on a plane.
Yes.
And does this, and Tom Hanks like, what? And flies out there in a rushed panic. I don't know what I would do if my 8-9-year-old got on a cross-country flight into New York City.
Yes.
I also don't think my child is capable of pulling that off. But you know what? He could surprise me.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just a really touching meeting on top of the Empire State Building.
Yep. It's a really great romantic comedy. Nora Ephron, one of her probably great films. She didn't do that many, but the ones she did were great. Tom Hanks, I mean, there are plenty of movies we could pick with Tom Hanks as the father. The Birds is one that comes to mind, too. I love The Birds. But this is a good one that you pick because it shows the devotion to the son, I think, after the death of his wife, but then also the idea of moving on, which, luckily neither one of us have had to deal with, but it's something that, would be something that maybe a lot of people have to deal with in life. It's a very emotional rom-com, which is weird because it's it's supposed to make you cheery. Yeah. But it does. I'd say by the end, it has a very happy ending. And both Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks are great together. Of course, You've Got Mail as well. Yep. So, I mean, it's Tom Hanks. Yep. I mean, Tom Hanks can do no wrong.
I know that we've talked about this movie before, and I don't know if it's on your list, but obviously Road to Perdition. Different scenario with Fatherhood.
Different scenario. We talked about the mob episode. Yes, I love that movie. You're right. That's another one. I didn't actually have that on my list. All right. So my next one that I want to talk about, I've been kind of going back and forth, but I feel like we have to talk about this one, Lane. And that is the ultimate dad movie, I think, Con Air.
Yes.
Nick Cage plays a father with a mullet and a man on a mission.
Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
All you had to do was put the bunny back in the box. Just saw that actor in something recently, and I tried to tell my wife, I'm like, that's the bunny in the box guy. He didn't put the bunny in the box. All right. So directed by Simon West. Starring Nicolas Cage, John Cusack, John Malkovich, Steve Buscemi, Ving Rhames, Cole Meany, Michael T. Williamson, Rachel Cotton. It is a movie about a man who's an Army Ranger, and he kills someone in a bar fight outside. He gets sentenced 7 to 10 years for involuntary manslaughter because his body is deemed a weapon.
Yeah, you tell me what judge... Especially in today's world.
Yes, it was self-defense. Yeah. So 8 years later, Poe is getting paroled. Cameron Poe is his name, greatest name in movie history. And he's getting paroled, and the only thing he cares about is his daughter, who he has never met, and he got her a bunny, which is in a box underneath the airplane. So, some criminals take over the plane, led by John Malkovich, Ving Rhames, and MC Gainey, who is the pilot.
Swamp Thing!
Yes. Danny Trejo is also in it as Johnny 23.
In my opinion, one of the most underrated villains.
Yes, a great villain, because he's a villain to everybody. Yeah. He's not just a villain to Nick Cage.
He is the villain that other villains on the plane are despised.
Yes, exactly. Steve Buscemi is the serial killer, who is just fantastic.
Oh, gosh. His line when they're dancing to Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah, define irony. It's such a great action flick to watch with your dad. I think that's why it's a good choice. And it's about a dad trying to get home to his daughter and his wife. That is the premise of this movie. And him wanting to do whatever he can. And they even make a point where he had an opportunity to get off the plane earlier in the movie, and he did it because he didn't think his daughter would think too highly of him if she knew he left his friend and the lady prison guard behind to be murdered, basically. So he basically goes about his way and dismantles the bad guys, kind of one by one, and plane crashes will help along the way. and other things happen to some of the other people. They turn on each other here and there.
Right, and he couldn't get off the plane because Baby O didn't have his
insulin.
That's what it is.
That's
by,
what. Yeah,
McKelty Williams.
Originally, he was supposed to get off the plane and be like, shout to the high heavens, but then they were going to gag him. So he's like, well, that's not a good idea anymore. Yeah. So then he stayed on the plane, and the idea was to get the insulin, which they were when they were at the airport when they went there. It's such a great scene. Yeah. A lot of people, I think this movie was directed by Michael Bay. It looks like a Michael Bay film. It comes from that Bruckheimer Simpson era where they produced all the 90s action films with a high percentage of them directed by Michael Bay. But Simon West has kind of been known for making these style of action films as well. This is probably his best one, I would say. He also did, is it Swordfish? I don't remember if he did Swordfish or not. But he did some other ones people would recognize. Like I said, it's just a really good, I think, Father's Day movie overall. You can tell my last two options have been kind of a little out there, but I wanted to choose something that was maybe not directly like a family film, I guess.
Absolutely.
So, all right, Wayne, what's your
real quick? Simon West, Lara Croft, Tomb Raider, the General's Daughter, and the Mechanic are their top listed.
Okay.
So
I actually like General's Daughter. A lot of people hate that movie.
A lot of people are foolish. All right, I am going with weird and out there for my last one. Big Fish, 2003.
Yes.
This is probably the start of my pursuit of wanting to make film and video. Because I wanted to do it out of high school, and I was discouraged by my parents. You'll never make any money. You'll never have a career doing that. It's such a long shot.
Mm-hmm.
Think about something that's, more of a sure thing, or more of a, a guarantee, has something that, you could have a career and a pension and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. And, I did the whole, anyway, we don't need to hear about my life in this season. But yeah, I saw Big Fish in the theater, completely blown away. Ewan McGregor, Albert Finney, Billy Crudup, Jessica Lange, Helena Bonham Carter, Robert Gilliam, just...
Directed by Tim Burton.
Yeah, directed by... Obviously, because Helena Bonham Carter is in it.
She's it, yes.
But,
he secretly directed all her Harry Potter movies, too.
No.
Just kidding.
Written by Daniel Wallace. Let's see. And there was a novel. The novel was by Daniel Wallace. Screenplay by John August. Little synopsis. A frustrated son tries to determine fact from fiction in his dying father's life. So Billy Crudup plays
the younger version.
The son of Ewan McGregor and Albert Finney.
So it's the other way around. Okay, so that's right. Ewan McGregor is the younger version of Albert Finney.
Yes, that's what it is. It's difficult to kind of I had to see that probably 3 or 4 times before I got it. It's like, why is Albert Finney always talking about Ewan McGregor? Oh, I get it now. Stupid Wade. So yeah, we're talking about tall tales and teaching life stories by, if you want to catch a big fish, you got to offer a wedding ring. I'm like, what? Okay, the wife is the big fish because she's completely out of his league, and daffodils. It just all of this weird craziness about.
It's a very Tim Burton way of making a movie about a father and a son.
Yeah,
basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, and the son doesn't feel like he really knows his father, but through the tall tales.
It's crazy because you get those tall tales, and then at the end of the movie, where they have the realization that all that stuff, like that was his life story.
He was a circus performer.
Yep.
And there's the conjoined twins, because I don't like the other word that you use for them. They were sisters, so they weren't actually conjoined. Conjoined. Sorry, thought I almost. Anyway, let me start over on that. Never mind.
So I mean, it was great at the end when they, everything kind of came everything. It was seemed like tall tales.
Yeah.
That were told to him, but then at the end you get the realization that most of what he was telling him was actually true, and it happened to him, with maybe a few exaggerations.
Yeah, Matthew Gregory's character, the giant.
Yep.
Where he's just a really tall guy in real life.
Mm-hmm.
It's just all these people existed. It was just fabricated to make the story more fun and interesting for the young William. Billy.
We'll call him Billy because that's his real name.
Gotcha. But yeah, it's got such a heart. It's so touching. when his dad's gonna, when his dad is finally dying, it's like, tell me a story. And he tells him how he set the big fish free, and how he carries him down to the river, tosses him in, and he turns into a fish and swims away, which is actually, a metaphor for his father passing away and going beyond.
Yes.
If you will.
It's a really incredible film. I think it was kind of overlooked a little bit when it came out, just because it was, even for Tim Burton, it was different than what he normally did. So it wasn't too dark of what normally he did.
Rarely. It was so bright and colorful, which is like the opposite of what he thinks.
But it was just as weird.
Yeah, but it was amazing.
Yeah,
all of his stuff is great.
Yeah.
But this just struck on a different level for me.
It was another level for sure for him.
So yeah.
So you definitely check out Big Fish. It's usually streaming elsewhere. All right, I'm going to give some of my recommendations outside of the ones we talked about already. One I know Wayne and I think are big fans of, Adam Sandler and Big Daddy.
Yep.
Great movie. Bill Paxton from Frailty. If you have not seen Frailty, is an amazing film.
All right.
And this isn't like he's not like a good dad, but it's just a movie about a great horror film that has a great characters in it. And Bill Paxton plays the patriarch of the family, and he's fantastic.
Mental illness is a son of a bitch.
Yeah. And a movie that he directed. Liam Neeson from Taken, obviously the ultimate dad. Sean Connery, Last Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
Eugene Levy from American Pie.
Yeah.
J.K. Simmons from Juno. Those are the ones that I wrote down.
Yeah. I mentioned Road to Perdition already, which I know we've talked about on the show before. Yep. Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith and is it Jaden Smith, I believe?
Yeah, Jaden, yep.
Finding Nemo.
That's
good
a good one,
story.
too. That's a good one, yeah.
Definitely Maybe with Ryan Reynolds.
That's a good one. I like that one, yeah.
He and his daughter and explaining who her mother is. And,
yes,
you mentioned Big Daddy already. You mentioned Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Logan was an interesting one because not exactly a father, but
a professor. Oh, well, actually, there's a couple because he's kind of a father to X-23 because it's his clone, and then Xavier to every. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's a good one. I like that.
Trouble with the Curve. Have you seen that one with?
With Clint Eastwood and Timberlake, right? Yep. That was decent.
Amy Adams, my affections for her run strong, if you will. And how about Father's Day with Robin Williams and Billy Crystal?
Yep. Oh, another one I was thinking of too, Birdcage with Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, where they play the fathers to I forget the actor's name, but the character in the film. Yep. And Gene Hackman also in that.
And there's just so many. I had to stop at this point because I would have kept going. And that's what brought on our introductory conversation about lots of fathers movies, but how about some more love for the single moms out there? I know we've got some, but we need some more.
There needs some more, and next year we should have probably done a Mother's Day episode. We just didn't, and the only reason that the Father's Day one came to mind was because of our movie in our reviews
of the week.
And it's the first one up is Fatherhood, and it is directed by Paul Weitz of the American Pie family and about a boy, and starring Kevin Hart, Alfre Woodard, Laurel Howery, Delanda Denice, Anthony Kerrigan, an actor who I'm very fond of, Frankie R. Faison, and Paul Reiser. Fatherhood is a movie. A recently withered father struggles to raise his daughter after the unexpected death of his wife. Apparently, it is actually based on a true story. The true story, though, I think it's either a book or a podcast or something, only went the first year of the dad's life, where this goes 5 years deep.
Yeah.
Does a time jump at a certain point to get us into when she's 5 years old. So Kevin Hart plays the father, and Matthew, and his daughter Maddie is born, and the mother is fine seemingly, and then all of a sudden something happens, and she has it's not an aneurysm, but something similar to that, a blood clot that kills her.
Yeah.
And it's very sad, obviously. So he's got two sets of grandparents. Well, one, he doesn't have his dad, but he's got his mom, and then her mom and dad. And they want to take the kid back to Minnesota, but he wants to prove to his wife who passed away, and to everybody else that he can do this, even though it seems like he can't do it. So with the help of his friends, played by Laurel Howery and Anthony Kerrigan, who played Jordan and Oscar, he sets out to raise his child, do the best that he can, And like I said, it jumps 5 years where she's in kindergarten and she's going to the school that her mother wanted to go to, and she won't conform and wear a skirt every day because she wants to wear pants. She doesn't understand why she can't wear pants.
Oh, I love that conversation that he has with the nun or the sister. Or,
yeah.
What would it be like if every boy wanted to come wearing a skirt or dressed as a girl? Like, it's 2001. Why don't you let them do what they want to do?
Yeah, 2021. Yeah, 2021.
What did I say?
2001. It's not 2001.
It should have been fine in 2001 as well.
It should have. Yeah, it should have been. And that's the kind of the thought behind this movie is that people should be able to be who they want, including him, including his daughter, including other people in the film. I do love Paul Reiser as his boss too. He does a great job as always. Coming on, killing the cameo, more than a cameo, I guess, but still, extended cameo, if you will. He gives him some solid fatherly advice earlier in the film. It's one of those movies that I think we need to talk about too Kevin Hart a little bit because he got in trouble recently within the last couple of years because of some tweets and stuff, and he's apologized and whatever. I did read a review where someone thought that that's all this movie was like an apology, and I disagree. I think it's nice to see him kind of branch out and do something that's not just a comedy. It mostly works. I'm not going to say it's not a perfect film, but I'd say it works from beginning to end. It's very touching. It's very emotional. Anthony Carrigan is the actor who plays Oscar. He actually has an autoimmune disease, alopecia, which is why he is missing all his hair. I listened to he was on Mark Maron's podcast, and he was talking about this movie. And he's like, it was nice just to play a guy who could just be a guy. Like there is because Mark's like, oh, and he's make fun of because it's a Kevin Hart movie. So he make fun of your hair. Or he's like, no, it's just a guy. I'm just a guy in a movie, and that's it. He's like, it was nice to be that for once.
I think Kevin Hart did a fantastic job because he was able to incorporate the funny when it needed to be. It was also very believable in the emotional scenes, where he's definitely still traumatized when, the daughter is at getting some stitches done.
Yes. He blames himself. Yep.
I don't want to give away the whole film, but yeah, just like the emotion and the vulnerability is the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, okay, yeah.
No, he showed, and he did another drama with Bryan Cranston recently, which was a remake of a foreign film. I haven't watched that one. So this is the first kind of foray into drama that I've seen out of him. And I thought he did a good job. And, and people cannot like him for the stuff he said before, and I get that, and that's completely their right, and I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I just, that's the thing with, things are said, and, stuff happens. And if somebody shows remorse for it, maybe he didn't show the remorse the way you wanted to, but, let's not just hold people accountable, but also be forgiving as well when...
You have to allow them to redeem themselves, I think, to a certain extent. Unless it's like a Weinstein-level situation, you have to allow them the ability to redeem themselves and be a better person. It is possible to have redemption in film and in real life and stuff. So I think the more accepting we are of that, the more we can move on from some of these minor incidences in stupidity or ignorance, whatever you want to talk about. But the movie, as the movie stands, I think it's enjoyable enough for everybody to sit down, enjoy it with their family. There's nothing too vulgar in it or anything, so it's definitely for everybody.
The couple of the conversations that Kevin Hart's character has with Frankie Faison, his father-in-law, were actually really, really nice, really on point.
Yes, they were. I like Frankie Faison, too. He's a really good character actor. Now, Alfre Woodard was really good. I mean, she played that concerned grandma very well. There was a couple moments with his mom, too, that I thought were really good, where he never really had a dad, so he wanted to be his line was, I want to be the best mom to my child that you were to me. And I thought that was a good line because it was not differentiating. It's, it basically being parents. He wants to be the best parent that he could be to his daughter that she was to him. And I thought that was very touching. Again, very emotional film at times. But check it out on Netflix if you're interested. It is up there. So it was originally supposed to, I think, be in theaters, but Sony sold it to Netflix. So check it out. Our next film is another new movie. It's a Disney Plus original now, which it wasn't supposed to be, but it's a Disney Pixar movie called Luca. debuted on Friday. It is a movie starring Jacob Tremblay as the main character, Luca. People may remember him from such films as, I feel like I'm doing the Simpsons bit. Let's see, he was in Room with Brie Larson, where she won her Oscar. He played her child. Before I Awake, The Book of Henry, Wonder, Good Boys, most recently Dr. Sleep. He had a small role in which apparently is longer in the director's cut, but was cut short in the theatrical version. Jack Dylan Glazer is in this as well. Maya Rudolph. Jim Gaffigan plays the dad, who he's always really funny. I love Jim Gaffigan.
Hot Pocket.
Hot Pocket. I saw recently that the anniversary of that recently was up. So it takes place. This movie is about fish monsters. I guess is the best way to describe it. It takes place in Italy. So I do like this kind of theme Pixar movie we've been getting lately. We had Coco, which was the Hispanic themed one, Soul, which was about African Americans and jazz music and all that. And then we get Luca, which is about Italians, and it kind of takes place in a little small town in Italy. So it's interesting that they're kind of going through here, trying to shine a light on other areas, as opposed to, most kids' movies take place in the same type of place. So I thought that was interesting. I like that aspect. I actually wasn't sure that that's where this is going at first.
Mm-hmm.
The premise is that these fish monsters, when they swim up to the earth or swim up to the top of the ocean and they get on land, they turn into humans. So they're shapeshifters, I guess.
Like Lady in the Water.
Lady in the Water. Little Mermaid, I thought of, obviously.
Under the sea.
Yes.
Darling, it's hotter under the water. Take it from me.
And there was no singing in this one, really. A little bit, I think, but not a musical at all. It's a touching story about a kid named Luca, who's one of these fish monster hybrids,
who grew up to be a hitman for The Godfather.
Yes, and Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes makes a lot more sense now.
Uh-huh.
He wants to, when he gets to feel what it's like to be human, he wants that. He wants to go to school. He wants to have friends. Where his friend, I think it's Alberto or Umberto. Let me see. Here, let's do voice cast. Hold on. Alberto wants to be kind of just there. He doesn't want the extravagant life that Luca wants, but he does want to be recognized and have someone to look up to, because he doesn't. Unlike Luca, he doesn't have a family. Luca has a mom and a dad. So it's kind of a touching story of two boys trying to kind of find their way in a world that doesn't want them, which I think a lot of people could probably relate to. And it was really a much more subtle film, I guess, for Pixar. It wasn't like, if that makes sense. Like, I don't feel like it was like as big as some of their other movies, but I thought it was really well done. You really kind of feel for the characters. Maya Rudolph and Jim Gaffigan as the parents are very loving parents and stuff. I thought they did a really good job. And what are your thoughts on Luca?
I thought it was a really sweet, affectionate movie. It really captured the bond that the characters share. Nothing too over the top. Nothing like. Not to say that they always have an underlying story or a reason or something that they want to talk about or or what's the term I'm looking for, like agenda.
Yeah.
That is pushed or not pushed or just. I'm saying it in a negative way and I don't mean it to. There's no underlying theme, I guess you could say. It's just a nice, honest story about different wants, different needs, and caring.
Exactly. So. It's a way to tell. Like one of those kid movies where the little kid wants to go off to Hollywood and be a star, but everyone's kind of holding back. It's that type of story, but set in the small town in Italy against the plot that they are fish monsters. So that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
It's a kind of little story, but then expanded on with such a beautiful colors and a bright locale and all that kind of stuff, and it really. Italy kind of lends itself to this movie, I think, and it works really well. So yeah, if you're looking for a new kids movie, It's not as good as the Mitchells vs. Machines, in my opinion, but it's good. It's on Disney Plus. So if you have Disney Plus, you don't have to pay for it. It's not one of their premiere titles or anything. You can check it out, and it's a good family movie. I would say to watch on well, not Father because you'll listen to this on Father's Day weekend, but maybe next year Father's Day weekend. All right, so what we've watched recently. I started watching this series called A Million Little Things. Have you heard about this one?
I have not. Tell me more, sir.
It stars James Roday from. Let me bring it up real quick. James Roday. He was from Psych, and it has. Let's see. Let me get to the cast real quick. David Giantoli, who was on Grimm, the TV show Grimm, Romany Malco from 40-Year-Old Virgin, Allison Miller, Christina Moses, Christina Ochoa, Grace Park from Hawaii Five-0, the TV show. Let's see. Ron Livingston, that's the other one I'm looking for. Ron Livingston plays this character, John Dixon, who in the very first episode kills himself. And his friends are torn apart. His wife is messed up over it, obviously, his family. And his friends are his family as well as his wife and his father-in-law and his two kids. So really, it's a story about how grief can affect everybody in the family and how it affects everybody differently. One of the characters, Romany Malco's character, Rome, was in the middle of actually killing himself when they got the phone call that his buddy killed himself. Another one was finding out that he was cancer-free, and the other one was sleeping with the dead guy's wife. So, there's a lot to unpack there. I've been through almost 2 full seasons already. It's got 3. It's been renewed for a 4th on ABC. It's a really good show. It's definitely ABC's answer to This Is Us, as like every episode is trying to make you cry. But it's a really good show. I really enjoy it. I like James Roday a lot. And he's really good in the show. He's probably why I keep watching, because he's a good actor, I think, and he plays it very well. The other thing I rewatched Striking Distance with Bruce Willis the other day. Him and Sarah Jessica Parker and what's his name? Tom Sizemore, Dennis Farina, John Mahoney, and Robert Pastorelli. A bunch of actors that had passed away in that movie. Stupid movie, but it's fun. It's like I told Rebecca they should have made a sequel called Boat Cops or turned it into a TV show called Boat Cops, because that's what I just kept thinking of. It's a murder mystery about a serial killer. Bruce Willis is chasing. His dad gets killed in the process. Then it goes 2 years later, and they think they caught the serial killer, but then the killings start again. And so Bruce Willis is trying, the whole time he thought it was a cop or an ex-cop, and no one believed him, so he's trying to prove to everybody that he was right. It's a fun little movie. It's on Stars right now. Check it out if you haven't seen it. We were watching Bone Collector, and it made me go, you know what, I'd like to watch another murder mystery, and that was the next one I watched. And then last night we watched The Call, which is this Asian movie on Netflix from South Korea, and it's about a girl who gets a phone call. And it's a lot like Frequency, if you've seen that movie with Dennis Quaid and Jim Caviezel, where they're talking to each other from the same house, but at different times. In one's in the future, one's in the past. It's the same thing here. One girl's in 2020, the other girl is in 1999, and they realize they're in the same house. The twist is that the girl in 2020 is helping this girl in 1999 because she thinks something bad's going to happen to her, which it was, but this girl's a serial killer. So she should have let the bad thing happen to her. And once things start to unfold, it gets pretty crazy. They tagged on it like a special ending in mid-credits, which I was not a fan of. But if you just watch it to the original ending and don't watch anymore, it's a really solid flick. I enjoyed it.
Are you trying to say a post-credit scene did not add to the film,
yes.
sir?
Well, it changed the ending of it, which was not a good way for the movie.
Changes.
All right, Wayne, what have you watched recently you want to talk about?
Oh, goodness. I am up through Fast 6. I went back and picked up Boardwalk Empire, which I had stopped for a little bit of time. I'm starting season 4 of that.
Nice.
Fantastic. And for the first time in forever. Oh wait, musicals were last week. Sorry. I started watching Friends.
Really, for the you've never
Very
watched
first
it?
time. I saw the last episode with a girl that I was dating.
Okay.
Because she loved the show, and well, I wanted to make her happy. And you know, I was like, yeah, that was the thing. And so I watched the pilot episode where I believe Jennifer Aniston's character's name is Rachel.
Yes.
Comes into the coffee shop, abandoning her wedding. And I feel that the laugh track was a bit aggressive, a bit loud. Maybe it's just on HBO Max, but I don't know. I get why people love it, but for me, it's just okay. I mean, I'm going to keep watching. I think I'm about 4 episodes in, and you know,
it's one of those shows.
If I was this age in the '90s, or around their age in the '90s, I bet I would totally get it and relate to it. But now, looking at it at the age that I am, at a almost 30-year-old show, it's like
it doesn't resonate as much with today as it did back then. I don't think.
And you know, there are some jokes and some things that are insinuated too that definitely don't fly anymore.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, but
yeah.
Overall, I get it, and it is a good show, but it's not something that's like, I have to finish watching. I need 10 episodes to watch right now. So,
yeah, I watched it because my sister watched it back in the 90s, but I never watched it religiously, so I would watch it here and there and stuff. I saw the finale and stuff. I never felt, though, like I should go back and watch it from the beginning. It was never something I was like, oh, I need to do this.
I saw that they did a reunion.
Yes.
So I figured, all right. Well, you know what? I'm curious. I haven't watched the reunion or anything because I don't know anything about the show.
You want to build up to it?
Yeah, I will watch the show, and I will eventually watch the reunion. So I believe it ran for 10 or 11 seasons.
Something like that, yeah.
So I got
too long.
Yeah. But, yeah, so there's that. A couple other things that again, Wayne, the forgetful guy that I am, I've forgotten some of the things that I watched outside of the stuff I mentioned. So
that's okay.
Yeah.
We forgive you, and we move on.
We lost somebody noticed. Are we going on to?
Yes, news and notes.
Yes. We lost somebody really notable last Sunday after we were recording.
Yes,
I'm sure you're going to talk about it now.
I will. We'll get to that. That'll be what we end with here. News and notes for the day, or for the week, rather. Gerard Butler returning to star and produce Greenland 2, called Greenland Migration. Greenland, one of the better disaster movies I have seen in my life. It is on HBO Max if you guys want to check it out.
Not to be confused with the other disaster, Green Lantern.
Yes. 2 different movies.
Both also disastrous.
Yes. Jessica Henwick from Iron Fist and Matrix 4 joins the cast of Knives Out 2. Limited series from Ryan Murphy called The Watch are headed to Netflix, starring Naomi Watts and Bobby Cannavale. Bobby Cannavale. Perfect Strangers reboot coming to HBO Max with Robin Thede and London Hughes cast as leads. 2 black female leads in this one. Can't wait to see how that show is. I really like the original, so I'm interested to see how this one turns out. Channing Tatum to star in Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut called Pussy Island. Yes, you heard that correctly. Shamar Moore joins Sonic 2. New animated Mortal Kombat movie coming this summer. Will Smith's the star and host variety comedy show on Netflix. Hiroki Sanada from Mortal Kombat and Army of the Dead, latest to join John Wick 4. MGM rebooting Blackula. Movies and TV shows coming out in the near future. Atypical, a show I've talked about many times, getting its final season, hits Netflix July 9th. Hail to the Deadites, a documentary about Evil Dead and its fans, hits VOD on July 27th. If you know me, I'm a huge Evil Dead fan, so I'm very excited for that. Dr. Death with Joshua Jackson, Christian Slater, and Alec Baldwin premieres on Peacock July 15th. I think a true story or just a mini-series. I'm not sure. I think it's a true story about a doctor who was killing people, and that's who Joshua Jackson played. Peter Jackson's Beatles documentary, The Beatles Get Back, now a 6-hour, 3-part limited series on Disney Plus, will debut November 25th through the 27th, so over Thanksgiving break. I'm looking forward to that, as my parents are. Originally, it was going to be like a 2-hour movie. Now it's a 6-hour documentary series. So,
do you remember? Gosh, it had to be at least 10, 15 years ago, where they did a spoof, or they did like a what if, where John Lennon and Paul McCartney
I
decided
think-
to reunite the Beatles, and
Yeah,
they're going to go
yeah,
and
yeah.
show up on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't remember how it ended or what became of it, but yeah, that just brought that to mind when you were talking about this. So.
All right. So what Wayne was alluding to at the beginning of the news segment, Ned Beatty passed away at 83 years old. A phenomenal actor, been around a long time, from Deliverance, so many great films that he has done, and he was just one of those guys that Mr. Reliable, you could call him. And he just so many movies and TV shows that I think people remember him from.
Was Deliverance his debut film?
It was. Deliverance was his first film. That same year, he had The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. Let's see. He was in White Lightning, Nashville, All the President's Men. Network was a big one for him. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. That's a really good movie. Silver Streak, Exorcist 2. Just Superman. He steals a lot of those scenes from Gene Hackman in that film. He was just a great, great actor. 83 years old. Back to School, of course, another one that he was fantastic in. So rest in peace to Ned Beatty. And also we lost this week John Paragon, who's a writer, director, actor who frequently worked with Elvira and Paul Rubens, a.k.a. Pee Wee Herman. He died at 66 years old, so that was sad too. He worked a lot on the Pee Wee show and a lot with both of them. So I think he directed or helped write the Elvira movies. So he's kind of got that legacy in the weird horror genre.
Normally, when we mention Paul Rubens or Pee Wee Herman, I would do the laugh, but in this case, the man died. So
Yes.
respect.
Not appropriate. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to Now Showing with Mike and Wayne. For Wayne Yerke, I'm Mike Kirkpatrick. Have a good night.